Welcome to Dark Side Shorts, and today's episode, Menes and the world's oldest border. Before we begin today's episode, I'd like you to think about two things. Firstly, time, and the sheer vastness of it, on a scale we can just about comprehend. Alexander the Great was born around 356 BC. He is widely considered one of the most influential figures of ancient history. You are closer to Alexander the Great than he is to the central figure of our story, Menes. If that was his real name, and if he existed at all, sometime between 3200 BC and 3000 BC. Secondly, the effects of time on our hero, who lived roughly 5,000 years ago, give or take a century, we think. Maybe. The hero we aren't even sure actually existed. Okay, now you're confused, let's begin. Our story today covers the border he is credited with destroying, the border between Upper and Lower Egypt. Now for a very abridged introduction to pre-ancient Egyptian history. Sometime around 8000 BC, the climate in northern Africa changed, and once rolling savanna, inhabited by hunter-gatherers, became hostile desert. One of the few areas that remained habitable was the Nile Valley and Nile Delta. People congregated in these areas, established settlements. They began to farm, and as the population grew over the millennia, two distinct cultures developed. That of the Nile Delta region, around the lower Nile, and that of the river valleys upstream, the upper Nile. Over time, these cultures condensed down into a relatively handful of different kingdoms that we know infuriatingly little about, and some, if not the majority, have probably been lost to time. This wasn't Egypt as we know it. That concept came about a lot later, with considerable effort from generations of pharaohs and Egyptians. Then, sometime vaguely around 3200 BC to 3000 BC-ish, a king from Upper Egypt we call Menes, or it could have possibly been Narmer, or a combination of both, or maybe he was an entirely mystical founding figure created by a later pharaoh. Listen, this far back in time he could have been called Bob, and we never know for certain. You know in science fiction books set in the future, where Hitler gets called Hister, Hoster, or something like that, but you know who the genocidal dictator or hero is referring to? This is how it actually happens. Okay, so Menes Narmerbob conquered the Upper Nile region, and then conquered the Lower Nile region, essentially creating the idea of a single Egypt, not a region divided by the Upper and Lower Nile societies. Now, when this all happened in a world more distant from Socrates than he is from us, the names, the chronological order, and even the hows get extremely blurred. Not made any easier by the fact the lands of the Nile Delta are excellent at destroying archaeological evidence, and Egypt has been conquered, fought civil wars, and been ransacked multiple times since then. All we know is somebody or several generations of somebodies, around 3200 BC to 3000 BC, united the land we call Egypt, and abolished the border between the Upper and Lower Nile. Then created the first line of pharaohs who took the cultural symbols from both lands to craft an image of a united kingdom under them, and then literally styled themselves as the uniters of two lands. The Narmer palette is probably the best evidence of this, and Menes Narmerbob actually existing. It provides one of the earliest known depictions of an Egyptian pharaoh. Narmer is seen carrying the cultural symbols of Upper and Lower Egypt, while the palette also contains some of the earliest hieroglyphs ever found. Now, if you want to start a fight between Egyptologists, go into a room and ask if this palette depicts an actual historical event or is an attempt at establishing a mythology. A founding father who united Upper and Lower Egypt under one ruler, propagated by the first pharaohs. Narmer's main advantage, pointing him to be the real uniter of Egypt, is simple. We know with as much certainty as possible a regional king called Narmer actually did exist during this period, controlling a kingdom in roughly the right area around roughly the correct time period. But just to make things more confusing, again, Egyptian kings, lords and pharaohs often had more than one name. In fact, they often had multiple names. So Menes may just have been another name for Narmer, or they could have been two people, or at least one of them could be entirely fictional. The craziest thing, though, we are not actually sure where the Egyptians of the time, including Menes Narmerbob, thought this border actually was. Though the sudden constriction of the Nile at Aset I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong. This is how you spell it. Is often cited as the boundary marker. We just can't be sure again. So, to summarise, we've got a border we can't pin down, a near mythical hero we can't actually be sure existed, and if he did, we might not know his actual name. Now, why is this all so important to us today? This great dark mystery, this mystical figure and the border he abolished created one of the most resistant national cultures of all time, and the foundations of a state that still exists until this day. The idea of a united Egypt has survived civil wars, occupation, invasion from everyone from the Sea People and Persians all the way to the Ottoman and British empires. Yet Egypt, the concept of a united nation, built around the Nile River and the physical nation, still trundles on, thanks to Menes Narmer Bob. Now, before we wrap this episode up, I'd like to thank my daughter for buying me the inspiration for this episode. The book, A History of the World in 47 Borders. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested. It's a great book, and boy has it given me a lot of potential material I could cover in the future. Episodes with more of a historical vibe like this one. Also, if you want to know more about the first pharaohs, I'll put a link in the description to a video I like. That will be a good basic primer for you.
I hope you liked today's episode. Don't forget to like, share, and of course, subscribe.